Hey everyone! We're going to continue on with the nervous system, and we're specifically going to continue on with talking more about the structure that occurs within the nervous system. So let's go ahead and continue and get started. Now, nervous tissue are often called neurons. Neurons are just basically your nerve cells. As a reminder, again, these are the ones that conduct electrical impulses. And we learned different parts of the nerve cells. We learned that one of the major parts is your cell body, and the other part are basically the processes that come off it. Well, clusters of cell bodies and the nerve fibers or projections that come off it can be named differently, whether they're in the CNS versus the PNS. Remember, your CNS, this is going to be your central nervous system, while as your PNS, this is your peripheral. So again, cell bodies, just as a general reminder, this is where you're going to find the nucleus, and this is also where metabolic processes take place for the cell. In the central nervous system, but clusters of cell bodies are called nuclei, whereas in the peripheral nervous system, they're called ganglia. Nerve fibers, remember, these are just your neuron processes. These are anything that comes off of the cell body. So we learned about two, axon and dendrites. These are called tracts in the central nervous system and nerves in the peripheral nervous system. Now, to get a little bit more specific, and we're going to hit this when we talk about the central nervous system, tracts within the central nervous system can be myelinated or unmyelinated. If they're myelinated, they're called white matter, and if they're unmyelinated, they're going to be called gray matter. Oh, I just want to go back to also add myelinated tracts. These are going to be the ones that have, again, myelin sheaths on them. So these conduct impulses faster, typically. Now we're going to go on to how can we classify different types of neurons. So according to classification, we can do them functionally and structurally. So functionally, we can classify them grouped according to the direction that they send the nerve impulse relative to the central nervous system. So in other words, does it go to the central nervous system or does the nerve impulse go away from the central nervous system? The first one we're going to focus on is your sensory, also known as your afferent neurons. These are going to carry impulses from your sensory receptors to your central nervous system. And when I say receptors, I'm going to cover what I mean here down below. Cell bodies for your sensory neurons are found in your ganglion outside your PNS. So remember, your ganglion are going to be your peripheral nervous system. Now, I said they carry impulses from sensory receptors to your central nervous system. So, what are sensory receptors? Well, they can be a variety of things. For example, in your skin, you have something called cutaneous sense organs, cutaneous meaning skin. So, again, that means skin. You have receptors that tell you whether you're in pain, if the temperature is hot or cold, if there's a lot of pressure, such as you being poked lightly or softly, or lightly or harder. Then in your muscles, we have something called proprioceptors. And these are again located in your muscles and tendons, and these tell us how much our muscles or tendons are being stretched or the tension that we have. And this is important because it helps us maintain balance and keep normal posture as well. Other sensory receptors are anything within your eye, so that detects change in light, color. Anything can be a sensory receptor that detects something and sends it to your brain. So this example here, the one thing I'm going to point out is here are dendrites. Dendrites are going to come in, so you're going to get a sensory receptor coming in. Here's your cell body. It's going to process it. And this whole thing is a sensory neuron. So this is a sensory neuron. Notice here the signal is saying it's going to go towards the CNS. So here are a couple other pictures of different types of sensory receptors. Again, you have free nerve endings that help tell you pain and temperature. For example, if you start cutting your finger. We have something called Meissner's corpuscles. These are touch receptors, so this helps us feel whether things are bristly or they're soft. You have lamellar corpuscles. These are deep pressure receptors. And then you have Golgi tendon organ. This is a type of proprioceptor that helps us tell whether our muscles are being stretched or there's tension. Now, also along with functional classification, besides going to the central nervous system, well, we have to have a name for ones that go away, and these are called motor or efferent neurons. These carry impulses from our CNS to the muscles and glands. So, in other words, away from the CNS. These cell bodies are typically actually located within the central nervous system. The last type is there is a special type called interneurons. These are sometimes called association neurons, and these help connect our sensory and our motor. So they're like the middleman, and so they're going to be located within our central nervous system. The cell bodies are. So if I go back to this picture, again, here we have our sensory neuron because it's taking messages to our spinal cord, our central nervous system. Here, this is a good example of an interneuron. And then right here, this is an example, the red is an example of my motor neuron sending my signal out to whatever muscle or gland that it needs to reach. Now we can talk about structural classification. Structural classification is based on the number of processes that extend from the cell body. Again, just to go over what processes mean again, there are two we talked about. One is axon, and the other one are your dendrites. We have something called multipolar neurons, and this is where we have a lot of extensions. So they usually have one axon and a ton of dendrites. Usually all motor and interneurons are going to be multipolar, and this is actually the most common structural type, which is why we talk about and show neurons as having multiple dendrites. So here, this is the most common type. This is why you see neurons most commonly structured this way, where you have a cell body, multiple dendrites, and then here you have your axon coming off of it. The other type are known as bipolar neurons, bi meaning two. So one of the things that come off of it is your axon. The other thing that comes off of it is your dendrite. These are pretty rare in adults, but they are located in special sense organs such as your nose and your eye that help detect smell and help you see. So here's an example of a bipolar neuron. Here's my cell body. Here's my first extension, which is my axon, and here's my second extension, which is my dendrite. So bi meaning two. And the last one we're going to talk about is unipolar. Unipolar means one. So this has a single short process that leaves that body. And what happens is after we have that single short process, it actually divides and becomes a proximal and distal end. These can be found as sensory neurons in our peripheral nervous system. And these are pretty cool because since there's only one process, they conduct impulses to and away from the cell body. So if I were to bring up a picture, here's my cell body. This is my one process that comes off it, hence the name uni. And it again splits here. It splits over here on my peripheral. Over here on the right, it splits over into my axon. And then, of course, my dendrites are down there. So again, I only have that one short process that comes off of it, hence the name uni. And that's the end of today's lesson. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to help. And I hope you guys have a good day.